What's this panel? Okay, somebody said I was supposed to be on a panel a little while ago, but it wasn't the HBCU. It was
Our lab do. Yeah, it's a great opportunity. I'm not very thought, but it's just I've already been. My computer, check the PDF.
Oh, I thought you were gonna sit up there.
Yeah. Bird eats my food choice. People make fun of the bird. Everyone's like, bird. Love it. I like it too, but what's that word for it? Valid, though, you're right. I don't know, I'm gonna switch around when I have the energy. So, did you do those things on last week?
Not so.
No. So I'm never good. This one was the 1 minute. They don't tell you anymore. Oh, okay. But Lauren presented. She was having internet issues. We were supposed to make PhD puppies, and I have an Ethernet cord, so I hear it going in and out. So she was struggling. So Megan had to be like, hey, like, we should figure try to call in. And she dropped the call. So I walked over to her office. And I found her. I was like, I just away from my computer. I have an Ethernet cord. That'd be your slides. So we're like trying to figure out what she did. Her she was under the presentation from my computer. I just sat in the corner, and so she
Was it of the same stuff that you did?
close. Yeah, a little bit more detail. It was slightly longer. But she was saying how she's like, oh, you went to Erie Free Parker Brothers High School because of all the technical she was usually compensated. And I was like, no, it's okay. She had 3 presentations this week, so I was like, no, it's the least I could do. Yeah. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's brutal.
Where did she present it?
MD, they've like worked together for some sense. She could present some data. Yeah, sorry, environment. So she presented to them yesterday. Students have not received it. They're all like the same variations and audiences. Yeah. It's like for her.
Did you go to the DD person?
No, I think it was just a closed meeting. I would go to meetings tomorrow.
Where's Chris?
Probably some Chris members.
It's not Baltimore people.
Tell them don't take any with me.
Yeah. I don't know Greg was. Maybe Melanie. Which part?
I went in the wrong way.
I almost did, and then caught myself, and then I was like, oh, I want to
I
park over
did, and I
here.
just kept going.
You're not the only person I saw who did that.
Saw the arrows, I went,
I went out. I went all the way up to the top.
You gonna do the stage.
No, she was still washing my bag.
Oh no, but my issue is I need the questions.
The one that I used.
for later. It's for later.
So that, it specifically says TCTAC. It's from Sean. Okay. Oh, it's so cool.
Like, you want to host Amazon?
Is
It was really cool to hear that. Yeah, I don't know. It's okay.
oh, we did
But they recognize like yes. I don't know that.
oh, okay. All right, let's see. I'm assuming it would have gone to my Gmail.
I know.
I think it went well. I missed part of it. I sure didn't want to. But I saw people. It was a lot of people going into all the sessions,
But the event is Saturday.
which was good. And I think that what I really liked.
I feel terrible about.
Yeah.
I know, and he said he's going.
Yeah. Huh? Oh. Oh. We didn't say anything. No, I'm just kidding. I enjoyed the round tables in particular.
That was my understanding of it. I could be wrong. I don't know. Like training. Yeah, so people are ready.
I do not see it.
Yep. So that was my understanding. We're walk through last night.
Yeah. I don't see it.
Better at it than I am. So, those people can all that.
Can't help it. The most soothing person I know.
I know what's leaving.
Yeah.
It would be I think I'm just. No, I don't know.
Um,
Maybe it's up.
yeah, I don't see any questions. What's email?
Johnny?
Who else is gonna be?
Are IT team, are there our speakers online? Okay, they're coming. Okay, cool. And everybody who's online streaming, we are running a little bit behind, so give us a few more minutes, please. Thank you. I be saying things, man. I like to pop off.
I know, like,
You talking to them, right? So we already have you in mind. But she told you not to we did that.
definitely never met that.
Yeah. So we're good. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Thank you. So just a quick update, everybody. There's snacks to the right. The food that's in the room is for the documentary viewing, post event, post symposium event. So if you want to get snacks, you can go over there. But the food that's in the room, that's for the documentary viewing. Okay. So snacks there first. Snacks there. And please, the food is free. Remember, this symposium is free too. So eat the food. Thank you. Oh, nice to meet you. You were on our session the other day. That was great session. I hope I didn't get too excited at the end. Like, say your name. What's your name? If I would have told y'all in the front, I didn't know I was gonna say that. What's your name? Say it for everybody. Exactly. But that was a great session. No, nice to meet you in person. Yeah, thank you. I gotta be me. I gotta be me. How we doing this? How we doing this time though? We at 5:15. Okay. Who's that? Yeah, he's here. Oh, may have been a project call.
No. Probably be.
Setting a date. Yeah, setting a date.
Oh, so the speakers use the StreamYard instead of Zoom. And that's something we need to communicate with them. So with the email something, you know, these are big name folks. You got to email them. Yeah. So, it was 3 people. Okay. Do you know who was it? You know who was it? Edmund, and was it Beverly or Peggy? Okay. Well, let me get the Peggy number. Okay, sorry for the delay. We're having a few tech issues. Oh no, you. They're asking for a passcode on Zoom.
I even felt like, how do I? That's just the vibe. I don't think that's true. That's just a feeling. That's the biggest.
Okay.
Oh, Dr. Beverly. Okay, awesome. Yeah, more Dr. Water. And yeah, I apologize. Rockstar.
That is lovely boat.
Probably want to mute Dr. Wright. We gotta go. That's good. Well, it's also really my so. Okay, everybody. We had some tech issues. Hopefully, I gave you some time to chat with somebody new here at the symposium. I hope everybody's had a chance to really enjoy this third day of people, power, and politics. Just want to say real quickly, I think we've had some really interesting sessions today. You learned about the TCTAC early this morning. You learned about NEJAC, right? Everybody should have an advisory council that's driven by the people to lead the real change. And now we're going to talk more about TCTAC today. So the plan was to have this session be a session with several regional directors of TCTACs. I think because a couple of colleagues, Edmund Cito, hopefully Edmund's able to join. He was flying out, and it sounds like one of our other colleagues, Peggy Shepard, has a board conflict. So it's going to be more of an intimate conversation. You have Dr. Hollis, who's here, again, co-director of the Region 3 TCTAC with me, and also another EJ icon who's with us online, Dr. Beverly Wright, who's director of the TCTAC that covers the Gulf Coast, which includes two regions, right, Dr. Wright? Both Region 6 and parts of Region 4. And so what I want to do is just to have a conversation about, again, digging more into these TCTACs and getting information about what the plans are for our TCTACs. And you've heard about that today, the Region 3 TCTAC. Again, unfortunately, we won't have that discussion with folks from Region 2. Dr. Wright helps. I mean, Peggy Shepard helps direct the Region 2 TCTAC, which covers New York, New Jersey, and some of those states. And then also Edmund Cito was coming from the Region 9 TCTAC, correct? Region 9 TCTAC, which is Washington State. So I want to start out with Dr. Wright. Again, Dr. Beverly Wright is real quickly, because I know we're behind times, one of those icons of the environmental justice movement. She directs the Deep South Center for Environmental Justice. She's been doing environmental justice work for, was it 40 plus years, Dr. Wright?
40 plus, yes.
40 plus years. Of course, she doesn't look a day over 35. Dr. Wright, thank you. Happy to be here. Happy to see you today. And also Dr.
Happy to see you too.
You're welcome. And also Dr. Wright has been, again, one of the leading figures, leading scientists, leading advocates when it comes to environmental justice work. She's received multiple awards, and she's also received a lot of new funding, right, Dr. Wright, including this TCTAC funding, also funding from the Webley Street Foundation, and she can cover more of that. But I want to go to you first. Oh, okay, Edmund Cito's here. Edmund, oh, thank you, Edmund, for joining. I know you had to jump on the plane. So Edmund, I just met Edmund, I think for the first time yesterday at the White House TCTAC meeting, and Edmund is helping to co-direct, correct, Edmund, co-direct the TCTAC out of Region 9. So what I want to do first is give a chance for Dr. Wright and Dr. Cito to talk about the regions that their TCTACs, their plans, the regions that they're covering. So earlier today, Dr. Wright and Dr. Cito, we talked about our TCTAC objectives, for our region. So can you talk about the plans for your TCTAC, the region that you cover, like the vision and your objectives? And this is kind of like first question. So I'm gonna go to Dr. Wright first. Go ahead, Dr. Wright.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Sokovi. Wonderful to see you and Adrian. Great to meet you, Dr. Edmund. Of course, my name is Beverly Wright, and I'm director of the Deep South Center for Environmental Justice. We've been around for at least 30 years. 1992 is when we began, so it's 30 plus years. And we were the first environmental justice center at an HBCU, and we're the longest standing, and I always like to say led by mostly women, because we don't get our just due, but we've been the ones standing in the wings, holding up everything for a very long time. And Sokovi is correct. I think for the first time in 30 years, we have received significant funding. It's taken us 30 years to get here, and of course, that's way too long. And I would have preferred it at 45 years old rather than 75 years old. So it's come late, but it's here. Our vision coming from the Deep South and the Gulf Coast means that we have an abundance of two things: unbelievable racism and really severe weather due to climate change, and lots of actions on that front. And so when the TCTAC proposal was presented to us, I looked at it and said, well, this is what we've been doing for the last 30 years with no money. Mm-hmm. So for us, this is what we're doing now, is what our work is generally. And I think it puts us a little bit ahead of the curve in a lot of ways, because we also got a head start with a Bezos grant that we called Activating Justice 40. So for a year and a half now, we've already been working with communities across the Gulf Coast and the United States.
And Dr. Wright, let me interrupt you too. You have the best conference in the country, HBCU. Go ahead and give a shout out to your own conference and that as well. Go ahead, Dr. Wright.
Yeah, so we have been, our HBCU Climate Change Conference has been in existence now. This will be our 9th year in person, because we didn't have it for 2 years, of course, because of COVID. But it will be October 11th through the 14th. And Sokovi, for the first time, we have over 100 people who registered who are not a part of the conference. Our conference seems to be growing by leaps and bounds every year. And I would say that the thing that makes our conference unique is the fact that it is young people from HBCUs and other predominantly white institutions. I was listening for PWIs, whose focus is on research related to climate change, but with an environmental justice or climate justice focus. It's majority HBCU students, but we don't discriminate. So the number of young people from PWIs has been increasing every year. The students must present an abstract that we review to determine whether or not you get on the big stage to present your research. This is giving them practice in the field. You know, when you go to professional conferences, you have to be prepared and present. So this is almost like an exercise for them, but the students are very excited about being able to present in a professional setting. We also include what we call professional panels, where we start off with a discussion of the state of climate. So for the last 9 years, we have been having experts coming to us in the field, in the climate field, really mostly sent to us by the Union of Concerned Scientists. We've had people who have been on the United Nations, or I forget, but the climate panel, the huge climate panel. What is it, Sokobi, the UC, I forget the acronyms, but it's all of the scientists who give us the information that we need to know about where we stand with climate. And at this particular point in time, I think that it's really necessary for us to be grounded in the science. So that's where it starts. And then we move from there with other professionals dealing with all types of issues related to climate change and its impact, how to solve the problem, what we should be doing. And we also include community-based groups who are fighting climate impacts, environmental justice impacts. And then we have students. So we have a mix of people at this conference, and a poster session where our students get to present their work. If they weren't invited to the main stage, they still get a chance to present their research. And we include something called Generation Next. So that's high school students who attend all day Saturday. They also have a poster session where they are presenting. So we're trying to introduce the next generation to climate change. And our goal really is to build a movement. You know, we want to build a movement of young people, old people, scientists, researchers that really is interested and committed to solving this climate problem that we have in an equitable way. So it's all about creating a different world, the one that we say we aspire to, but we have not gotten there. And I believe that this huge transition that we're going to have to make to a renewable energy economy would have to be an equitable renewable energy economy. And hopefully we're trying to train young people to think in that way and not in the way that we have thought in the past. So you can already tell I can talk too long. That was supposed to be just a few minutes.
Yeah, and I interrupted you. I'm sorry. I got you off of your TCTAC onto the HBCU, but I want to make sure that that is a model for how we need to be doing the work to grow the pathway, the pool of folks who need to be in this space doing this work, and the capacity building that comes along with the TCTAC. So I'm going to give you another minute, Dr. to go back to TCTAC. Sorry about that, but I know it's important.
All right, take me all the way back to TCTAC.
Go back to TCTAC. What's the plan, the vision, objectives? And I'm going to go to Dr. Cito. Yes, no, go ahead.
So at the Deep South Center, we only work in one way, and that is a holistic approach to whatever we do. Because, by the way, we also have a worker training program at the Deep South Center. So communities who are impacted by environmental injustices or industry, and there are big projects to clean up those areas, we make certain that our communities are involved. And first of all, learning how to do it safely, and then becoming a part of the economic benefits of having a site cleaned up, just to go back to who we are when we say holistic. So our approach for the TCTAC is to meet communities exactly where they are, because every community is at a different place. And we created a roadmap for getting us to the end of this whole process, that being communities finally getting funding for projects that they envision being appropriate for the climate impacts that they're feeling, or the environmental impacts that they're feeling in general. So that requires a whole different approach of working with communities from, for example, and we have stages on with our TCTAC, starting first of all with communities who are not even organized, maybe helping them get 501c3s or concerned citizens groups. And then secondly, taking them through a process to identify their community priorities and needs. And so within each stage of learning or moving forward, we provide them with the support that they need to get to the point where they can say, okay, this is what we have all decided in our community, what we want, and then help them connect with the state, local, federal government, or direct funding for those projects. For us, it's exciting because we already have people on the roadmap because we've been doing it for a year and a half. And many of them are at the last stage, and we call it shovel-ready projects. We're already there. We've also had a year and a half to figure out how to implement this huge project that I'm realizing how huge it is, how to implement all of the pieces of work that we know need to be done to get communities where they are. And so, we just had our first convening that can be paid for with TCTAC money whenever we get it. And it was really an introduction to our roadmap. We had 153 community-based organizations in attendance at that meeting. We're supposed to cover Region 4 and 6, but within our roadmap, we have communities from as far away as Washington State, Michigan, and so on. So we've turned no one down because J40 didn't have restrictions. The TCTAC to some extent does. And so we're gonna follow the rule, but 153 community-based organizations and federal government representatives from almost 11 agencies, all there with one objective that we laid out to them, where you need to be talking to communities specifically about their projects and what they need to do to get there. And we set it up in a way that they had office hours. So you imagine a little community from Mississippi with a flood project is now able to sit down at the table with EPA or DOE or whomever, present that project, and then ask them questions. What must I do to get funding for this project? So it's been amazing. We're setting that forward throughout the process. Wherever you come in, we have a whole group to work with you at that stage. There are about 8 stages, including helping communities tell their story.
Dr. Wright, let's hold that, because I wanted you to cover everything now. But hold that thought. Let me pass the mic. It's hard for me to cut off my mentors.
Stop me now, I'm telling you.
I'm gonna jump in, but you're virtual too. It's easier when you're in person. No, it's not. No, it's not. But we're gonna hold that and talk about the 8 stages when we come back to you. Okay, thank you for that.
All right.
Go ahead, Dr. Cito. Talk about your TCTAC, the vision, the plans. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, let me just say, Dr. Wright is a tough act to follow. But so much of what she talked about resonates with me as well in our TCTAC Center. So we are located in the University of Washington in Seattle, and we cover Region 10, 4 states. So that's Alaska, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington State. And my own background is as an academic out of community-based research. And for many, many years, very much like Dr. Wright mentioned, we work for free wherever the needs are, whatever community group approaches us, government agency, they need help. We're a public university, so we do what we have capacity to do, which oftentimes isn't very much because students are expensive. But this is sort of a game changer. When we saw this EPA and DOE opportunity last fall, we thought about what could we do with some sustained funding that would be directed towards our community partners in a way that we've never had access to before. Unless, the university wrote a research grant proposal And then there's, a portion of that that goes towards our community partners. But it's never been, a quick process. It's always been, let's apply for a research grant. Let's wait 9 months. Maybe we'll get funded. Maybe we won't. If we don't, then we have to find another avenue, and on and on. So, to the credit of our partners, they've been very, very patient with this sort of academic model. And we're starting to see the shift now where I think community is coming first. We're leveraging some of the machinery and the efficiency of the university to kind of bring in, the EPA money. But, we hope to kind of, follow Justice 40, push out, at least 40% of direct benefits into communities. And by that, direct benefits, to me, and I think to our center, that means dollars. And so we are looking for groups that, have had difficulty in the past getting government grants, have just not been able to figure out the bureaucracy and the paperwork. And, the whole thing about the TCTAC centers is we're supposed to provide technical assistance to help them identify good funding opportunities, grants that specifically community groups and tribes would be eligible for, and to provide them with the technical assistance so that they're successful in landing those grants. And, to give you some example, we're talking about, a small tribal community, 500 people in rural Alaska, that kind of situation where, in the past, be very, very difficult for them to get federal funding for an environmental justice project. We're trying to create some synergies between different groups so that even a small community like that would be part of a consortium that would receive funding to work on their environmental issues that they've been struggling with for decades and generations. So that's an example of some of the challenges, but also some of the opportunities that we're trying to enable.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I'm going to go to Dr. Hollis, my co-director. Remember again, for our Region 3 TCTAC, it's co between National Wildlife Federation and University of Maryland. But do you have any thoughts about our approach? And one thing I want to just share, I think for us here in the discussion we had yesterday at the White House, and as directors of TCTACs, I think it's really important for us to kind of model some of these best practices across the TCTACs, and making sure we have some, not necessarily uniformity, but really kind of doing the same things. Of course, one size doesn't fit all, right? But hearing what Dr. Wright's doing, knowing you had kind of like a year and a half head start in some ways, so you're not ramping up. Some of us still in a slow ramp up mode, right? And so it's interesting how many of the TCTACs are at different points. But how can we learn from, since some of us are still in ramp up mode, what you did in your ramp up for your year and a half, that we can replicate that model and some of those successes, and not have the pitfalls, right, that you may have gone through and you work those bugs out, so we don't have to do that. So I want to give Adrian a chance to kind of just talk about what we're trying to do and respond to what you heard so far. Go ahead, Adrian. Is the mic on?
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess I need to use it.
Yes.
Yeah, Dr. Wright is way ahead. And I was, when I heard that, I was like, aw, because I feel like we're crazy busy, but nothing that we're doing was in our plan that we submitted to EPA, but we still have to do it. We're putting together, I need to fix it, but we've set up a web page so that people who need just general information, because we've been getting a lot of requests for information, just so they can go to the web page. We've set up a 1-800 number and a 202 number so people can volunteer to provide services, or they can request services, when we get to that point. I feel like what we're doing now is we're doing the hard part. We're laying the foundation, like you said, and setting that. But I also think it's the great thing to me is that our community partners have been working in their communities for so long that they already know. They have a good idea, a very clear idea about what's needed. So once we get to that point, I feel like we're going to take off, and we're going to move faster. But it's just the ramping up. And one of the things the most important challenge, what we've been talking about in our meetings with the National Wildlife Federation and others, and what Dr. Wilson talked about at the White House yesterday, and people clapped, and it was like, it was like, amen, because it was the fact that people need money to do the work, not money after the work, because you can't do the work if you can't afford, you don't have the money. And we have been saying that at NWF, but that's not the way people think, right? Unless you're from EJ or you do this work. So I don't know. I know that if you have, one of the benefits is to have other resources that you can use. And because this is new, at least to NWF, we don't necessarily have that right now. And so we're going to be depending a lot on Dr. Wilson. You didn't know that when it comes to that. And when we asked our EPA rep, what are other communities doing? What are other TCTACs doing about the fact that communities need their money, need some money up front? And so far, I guess she hadn't gotten much feedback. And I noticed, I don't know if I said this yesterday, when we were at the White House, I didn't see many TCTACs that had community partners. Some partnered with local governments. And I was like, where are the people? And so of course they're not going to be able to share best practices with us when it comes to innovative ways to fund, communities. And one of the things that the TCTAC does is it pushes people to think outside the box. And I love that, because you have organizations that traditionally do things one way, but you can't do that and do the good work. You got to be innovative. You got to think outside the box. You have to be willing to try new things and willing to listen and learn and change. So I think the fact that we are doing this, and I wrote this yesterday, the sort of the train the trainer approach, and that our community partners are going to go out and work with other communities, and we're not limiting it to just our region, is a great thing, because that's sustainable, beyond this 5 years, although hopefully we can get more money after this,
Yeah. And just to add to that, I mean, so when Dr. Wright said, again, you said you had this 1 year and a half, you have 153 organizations. Like, oh man, 153 organizations, including federal. And then you have people already going to this, this roadmap in these 8 stages. I'm gonna give you a chance, Dr. Wright, to come back to these 8 stages. But you heard the challenge about community-based organizations who have low capacity. They cannot do reimbursement, right? You cannot do reimbursement. I also heard you say, Dr. Wright, that you're working with folks beyond your region. So Kim in New Jersey, I'm not sure, because we have, Dr. Wright, we have money from Robert Wood Johnson Foundation for the Mid-Atlantic Climate Action Hub. We also have money from Waverly to help also fund that hub. And so SWIA, which is in Region 2 of the EPA, is one of our match partners. And so the idea is, sounds like if you're going across borders, should we all go across borders to work with? I don't want to get in trouble, but I like that idea to be able to partner, work with our hub partners. So I just want to add a little bit to that, because I like what you're saying. So to come back to you, Dr. Wright, can you dig a little bit more, as you were going to before? I know I cut you off, into what your roadmap is and those 8. You said those 8 phases and stages. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, what I want to say, even before we get to the roadmap, is that because we have been working directly with communities, and you know about that because you work with us, training through our HBCU Climate Change Consortium with community-based organizations across the Gulf South. We've been working with some communities for 8 years, and we have built an unbelievable group of spokespersons for these communities that have impacted policy, been able to write their own grants. So we had, because this is what we do, we've been doing it from the time we started, we just moved that knowledge onto this. And I've developed something called a hub network concept, where I brought in 22 community-based organization leaders that I know their area. We made them hub leaders, and their task was to bring in 10 community-based organizations into their hub. That's how we got to 100. We'll be at 250 by January, because if you have the hub leaders doing the outreach for their own regions of people they already know, bringing them in we're placing them on the roadmap, if you know what I mean. That's how you grow.
Yep.
That requires resources, though, for the hub.
Yep.
Hub network members, and we were lucky enough to have the Bezos grant that gave us money and other grants to support our hub members. That's why I say we just had a head start, but it's really a concept that's developed over 30 years and connections over 30 years with communities across the US that made it possible for us to bring so many people into the fold. Now, once they come into the fold, in there lies a problem. Because now, as you know, TCTAC gives us no money really to support capacity building with the community-based organizations. They give us money to do technical training, but no money to go directly to the community-based organizations. And this is why I've been talking with foundations about supporting that particular funding, monies to go directly to communities. So we gave each hub leader $50,000. So they had $50,000. Out of that, they were responsible for hiring at least one person who would be responsible for reporting to us. And this is something that you learn along the ways. You need to give them enough money to hire a consultant or somebody on their staff. Then you can have constant and efficient communication and reporting with that organization that then allows it to grow. So the roadmap actually evolved from a project that I was doing with my HBCU consortium and members there, where we started off, first of all, with, do communities really know what they want? And if they do know, is there a consensus about what of what they know they want to move forward with? So researchers can actually go into communities and cause conflict by going in with projects that half the people don't want and some want. So the first thing is a priority setting process. Well, the first is making certain they have a concerned citizens organization with a fiduciary or none if they don't have any money, and a 501c3. And then after that, being able to bring communities together to go through a process of priority setting. That's stage one. Stage one includes a whole lot of other things depending upon what communities need. And we have a survey and all of this and outreach coordinators to determine where they are. But after they get there, we do what we call community forums, where we teach them how to interact with their members to make those conclusions. And our people go in and we've had over 100 people at different forums, and they start saying, what are your concerns? They list the concerns. What are your needs? What do you need to maybe solve this problem, right? We put all of those down really old-fashioned on the board, pencil, dots, all of that, so the community members are moving around. And then we go to voting. Your top priority, your top 3 priorities, and we keep moving until we get at least 3, and then they pick one. The difference with this process is because we're going after J40 sort of money, they know they have to pick something that falls within those 7 categories. So a lot of education goes in. These are the 7 categories. This is what Justice 40 is. That is what goes on at the forum before we put them into stage 1. And then stage 2 is storytelling. Coming together. How do you tell this story? Because if you want to get help, you need to be, it's almost like marketing. Do people know who you are? Do they know what your problem is? And then the next stage, and I probably don't have them all running together because we have 8, and I probably remembered not all 8 of them in line at this point. But then the next thing absolutely is, who should I be connecting with in your own community, among community members? Because some people are leaders. You got to get them on board if you want anybody else to work with you, teaching them how to develop those proper relationships. And then, who politically should you be working with? So we walk them through connection with local, state, and government, like who's responsible for your water? We have all trainings on that. The sewer system, all of these different things that they should know, the names of all of these people who make these decisions. That's another part of connecting. And then thirdly, the local, state, and federal, introducing them to the money that is out there, understanding EPA, DOE programs, you know, understanding FEMA money, NIOSH, even NASA has money. Everybody has something to do with J40. So depending upon what you picked as your priority, we start looking at and helping them determine which of these agencies should you be tapping for funding. What is solar for all? What's a green bank? All of these things where all the money is, we take them through that training. And we have a system for them moving from stage 1 to stage 2, 3, and 4. And I think our biggest challenge right now is grant writing. Finding a way to provide the grant writing assistance that communities need. Yes, trainer is one thing, but communities need these grants done now. Most of them need one-on-one with a grant writer where they're working with them as they move forward. And that is very expensive. But that right now is our challenge for the ones who are all the way to the end of the roadmap. And of course, once we get there and get the proposal submitted, funding, of course, is the final point for saying you are successful. But for me, getting that proposal in is almost the final thing for me, because the federal government had better fund those proposals once we do all that work to get it in. That's what I'm saying. So it's a process, Sokobi, and we're learning at every stage. We now realize, for example, that we need a coordinator for each stage, maybe 2 stages together, but we need a point person that's working directly with all the people. We're going to do virtual trainings, for example. We get from our training institute, where we will be putting online the dates that we will be having training on each stage. And that's open to everybody as we try to move forward. So
yeah, thank you for
this
that.
is almost like my life's work. And I'm so happy that somebody's going to fund us to do
Yes, ma'am.
what we've been doing for 30 years.
No, that was great. I was listening. I'm taking notes. I know Adrian's taking notes. There's some interesting parallels and some how what we're doing is similar to what you're doing and where it diverges. And one of the ways that, and I'll come to you, Dr. Cito, in a second. One of the ways where it diverges, and I like your point about leveraging of the funding. So for our partners in the region, Siege, we do have multiple pots of foundation money that could be potentially leveraged to help accelerate some of our work. But one example for what Dr. Wright said, many of our TCTAC partners, they already have money through our match program. They have $50,000, right? But the issue is, I'm not sure Parissa's still here. I think the work plan for the folks in Empower DC may be a little bit too much, right? So listen to Dr. Wright, you just have a point person staff who's the liaison, and you get $50,000 to primarily do that. Maybe we need to simplify what folks are doing for match, and also in our work plan for the TCTAC, maybe we need to simplify what they're going to be doing. Well, Dr. Wright and our TIC, let me just slow down.
Yeah.
So in match, they're getting $50,000, but for the TCTAC, we're actually using a hub and spoke approach. So we have core community hubs. So we have community groups who've been doing EJ work for what, everybody, 10 plus years in their communities, in their areas, the community hubs. So then they are getting out of the TCTAC money between $100,000 to $140,000 to be the hubs, right? And so we have some similarities now we're leveraging, but we also have some differences. We are using a hub model, but our hub model is a little different. So it's good to hear we on the same page, and we also good to hear when we did when I made my comments earlier this morning about our TCTAC, I said our biggest objective, our biggest challenge is the grant writing. So that's the heart of the TCTAC, but actually that's the hardest thing to do. We don't have grant writers growing on trees around here. And writing a grant proposal is difficult. But with the hundreds of grants that are coming out that we learned about yesterday, Dr. Cito, there's too many things for us to be able to write quick enough to help one community, not along 153 in your case, or our 8 core partners and future partners. So I'm gonna stop there. I'm gonna pass the mic to Dr. Cito. Can you talk more about your plans for your TCTAC and even reflecting on some of the practices and some of the challenges that Dr. Wright just outlined? Go ahead.
Yeah. So the hub and spoke model is exactly the right analogy. It's super powerful. And we want to do something similar. We went out kind of on the road to kind of get some input on the needs and priorities that are out there. And as we were talking about things, you know, I could sense some resentment. Why is the university doing technical assistance? You know, particularly, you know, so tribal groups, for instance. Why is the university teaching tribal groups how to do their environmental work or how to write a proposal around their issues? So there was a bit of a pushback. And the question, which got us thinking really hard, was why aren't tribes helping tribes? Why aren't tribes providing TA to tribes? Why isn't a coalition of frontline community climate justice organizations, they've been at it for years and years, why aren't they the folks funded to provide technical assistance to others that are within their network? So I'm trying to see whether or not there's flexibility within TCTAC where we could push out under the aegis of Justice 40% of our dollars as sub-awards to community groups that want to provide TA within their network. So it's a hub and spoke model. Like, you know, the university is some machinery to bring in the money. You know, we have the TCTAC, but can we fund, you know, long-standing organizations that have the capacity to provide some technical assistance to their sisters and brothers that perhaps aren't quite there yet, but have good ideas, have burgeoning community leaders within their folds. So that's the kind of hub and spoke that we're trying to enable. That said, I mean, we're going to have to kind of, you know, work with EPA to see if they'll actually buy and do this kind of funding. I think the initial conversations we've had around sub-awards to organizations to kind of spread out the TA has been quite positive. So I think we're going to be able to do it.
It is.
Yeah.
It is positive, you know, to do it that way, because my situation has always been one foot in the university and the other foot in the community. Because I started out, you know, this whole community model. I don't get the pushback that a lot of people get, like universities would get or have gotten. I don't get it because of the way that I started. And the reason I started working the way that I did is because communities hated the universities around where I live, especially in Louisiana, with universities like Tulane and LSU being so connected to the oil and gas industry. That put a lot of blocks on what they could do, what they could say, and I understood that. So I set out to find a way to work with communities that was ethical, you know, and with respect for both sides, making sure I paid community experts the same as I paid the research experts. That's in my community model. That's why I said our approach is the DSCEJ community model that we've tested now for nearly 30 years, and it works. So there is a way to work with communities at a university that is respectful, but you have to build those relationships, if you know what I mean. And I'm certain you do, but since you've worked with community, you know, that takes time. You know, it takes time to build that. But I would say that the particular approach that we have is not funding community-based organizations to deal with grant writing. Our community-based organizations want grants themselves. In other words, you know, they don't really have the time to help other community-based organizations write grants. They're trying to get their own grants written, and they barely have capacity for that. So ours did not go that route, although we could have, but we did go that route for outreach. And so all of our hub leaders are basically responsible for bringing people into this network, or we call Activating Justice 40. And we pay them that money. And at the same time, they're learning everything that the other groups are learning at the same time. And, you know, for right now, it's working. But when I tell you, Sokobi and Dr. Edmond, that the amount of support staff that you need to get this done is quite amazing. I mean, and some other time I can show you all the different levels of support we've had to put in place. You know, outreach coordinators to work with the hub leaders, and then there are like different layers of it. In fact, I'm writing it all down so as a map to how to do this, because we are, what do you say, flying this plane while we're building it, or
Yes,
rowing this
ma'am.
boat while we're building one of those. It's all, and the EPA is doing the same thing.
Yep.
This is their first time, and they are figuring it out as we go along. So we all have to work together, you know, to make this work.
I just want to add to that last point about support staff. I think I said the core of the TCTACs and one of the biggest challenges is the grant writing. And you're right about communities want to apply for the money. They need, capacity and access, right? And you have a capacity continuum. And most groups, there was a comment yesterday in the White House meeting. It wasn't the back of one of the speakers said that there's about 22 groups or 24 groups around the country, right? Community groups could lead, get this money, right? I said in response, there's probably about 5 community-based organizations who do EJ work, who have the capacity to lead this. Who have the capacity to lead this. So, and that speaks to there's a capacity continuum. So you have to make sure the groups get those dollars and those dollars are accessible. And getting back to your point about support staff, I think even though our TCTAC, as I said earlier this moment, it got $12 million, because we went a different direction with how we're dividing the funds up, because we want to have equity in the funding. If you look at the different, community partners versus academic partners, right, and green partners, right, we did that, but we do have a challenge with the support staff. So, right, part of our ramping up is to hire more staff, and I think we may have to find other pots of money just to hire the additional staff. And also, Dr. Wright, we're trying to integrate, and also for everybody in the audience, in person, online, we're also trying to leverage or implement a collaborative problem-solving model. And part of this is working with other groups who may have staff without us having to pay additional staff, that they're doing a piece that can be leveraged, basically. Because I'm not sure we're going to be able to get enough staff support that we need based on the funding we have. And so trying to work with those partners, those secondary partners, to do some of that additional work is going to be important. So I mentioned today, for example, our Environmental Finance Center is our lead on the grant writing, but we have additional partners that could help, like EPN, that we're going to have to engage with EPN in some of this. We have folks from the Margot's group and Writing for Green, potentially working with them. On the energy justice side of it, that's our objective for working with business and industry, working with government. We have folks who are already doing work in the energy justice space in the region that we made it engaged, where we work with their staff because they're already doing that work. So we don't have to duplicate what they're already doing. So to make up for the fact that we're not going to have enough money in our budget based on our hub and spoke model, in which way we're going to make sure our community partners are getting, enough of the money. The institutional partners are going to have to find other institutional partners to leverage those projects and those staff that they have, while also trying to find additional pots of money that I may have to rethink how we use. I do have other pots of money, but I haven't really thought about leveraging that money as much for the TCTAC, because it takes away from other projects, unless we find a way to fold those projects under TCTAC in the same way you funded your 1.5 year work under the TCTAC, right? So just want to share, it's good to have this, this real-time discussion to help think things out, to hear from both you and Dr. Cito, and then Adrian, I'll pass the mic back to you. Now, before we pass the mic, I do have an announcement. I want to make sure I mess this up. Hold on a second. For everyone staying at the Marriott Hotel, there will be a shuttle pickup at 6:30 p.m. on Fieldhouse Drive. So just want to say that. I'm not sure there's a shuttle pickup after that, but I think that's the next shuttle pickup. Just want to say that. Now, Adrian, what are your thoughts based on what you heard about the roadmap, the stages, what Dr. Cito is doing about the subawards? What do you think we should be doing? Because again, this is a peer-to-peer sharing session, everyone. So it's good to be sharing with our peers in real time. And we can kind of reflect on what's been shared. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, my first thought was panic.
Okay, panic. Okay.
I was like, oh my God, we didn't do it like that. But I still like.
It's okay. But that's okay.
Yeah. I still like the model, but and we don't have a year and a half in, you know. I haven't even been that NWF a year and a half. So, but, you know, there's some thoughts around, we did clear with EPA that we could make some modifications, minor modifications to our
You
budget.
can.
Yeah, so there's there's some leeway there, but I do think foundations, as we learned yesterday from the folks at the White House, that was something that they had expected, although the foundations didn't necessarily
looked
know about
surprised.
it. Yeah, they were like,
Okay.
"What? We're supposed to do what?"
Yeah,
That
so
they
so
would
for the
be-
foundations to add in that to fill the gaps, to fill the void, right?
Yeah.
Was that what there was an interesting conversation, and foundations, I'll say to the pastor mic back to you. Foundations have been providing more support in the space, but Dr. Wright knows, as everyone knows, this foundations, was the report, have given less than 4% of their funding to EJ work.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of stepping up and stepping in to do. Go ahead, Dr.
Yeah,
Hollis.
and two different foundations in the past couple of months have asked me, what can we do to help support the TCTAC work? And I didn't think about all of this because we're really flying the plane and it's shaky. But you know, it's becoming more steady as we move on and talk things out. You know,
It's Wright Brothers. We're at Wright Brothers level right now. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm Amelia.
You-
But you know, all of these are great. You know, this is great because it helps us think about ways we can enhance, you know, our project. Maybe I don't know how many of our community partners are here, because I don't want to get in trouble for for saying that maybe we can see if they would be interested in. I know that some of them had put aside some funds for support staff, but they have a lot to do too, a lot of their own work to do. I don't know if they
And
want
that's the comment I made earlier about maybe we need to for those our TCTAC partners, we may need to pare back your work plans a little bit, because that was part of the discussion. We had a TCTAC and match meet and greet, and Parisa said we really need to get to the true cost of doing all of this work.
Yeah.
And not
Yeah.
have a lot of in-kind absorbed by the community groups. We need to get the true costs, get that down, and we have that. That should help us kind of modify. Maybe we have these initial work plans, but
Yeah.
we may need to tweak the work plans because they're not realistic based on that current load, that current staffing, how long does it take to ramp up, and then our ramp up needs and the support we're trying to have them do is like, as Dr. Wright said, she's doing a different approach. We want to have a trainer approach, but maybe we need to go more on the outreach side and maybe pare back on a technical assistance side. But we can figure that out. We weren't doing the technical assistance like starting out right now. But
I think having the convenience.
So Colby, I did want to tell you that on the technical assistance side, when we were working through this last year with the groups that we had in, we ended up coming up with about maybe 4 buckets for technical assistance. Grant writing, of course, is one of the buckets, but technical assistance such as assistance from engineers and people for communities who want infrastructure projects. You know, you can't just say, I want a bridge here, I don't want a bridge there. You know, whatever it is you want, you need the engineers to tell you if this is going to cause flooding someplace else or whatever. So we have a technical assistance bucket. We have the grant writing bucket, the technical assistance bucket, the storytelling bucket for the groups, the writers who will be working with communities to be able to tell their story. We have a staff writer because all of this has to be written up someplace. And that's what I mean about that, the staffing, the amount of support that we need to get this off the ground. This is nowhere near enough money.
Yeah.
And then if you look at your hub leaders, for whatever you had them doing, I'm calling them hub leaders. Any groups with your outreach, any group you bring in, they also need money. So if I have 10 new groups coming in under a hub leader that's get 50,000, if I wanted to give each group 10,000, the new groups in, not the 50 because they don't have to do any outreach, add that up.
Yeah.
And then multiply that times 25, which is what we have now, about 25 hub leaders. You're in the millions of dollars that you need to go directly to community groups so that you can get them to buy into the process, because they'll have somebody they can pay to be accountable to you. And we've even done that with the communities you work with, Sokobi, with us, our consortium. All of those people who work with us have stipends of maybe 30,000 when they first start out. And that's why we've been so successful, because these people attend every training that we do. It's mandatory in their contract, and the growth is unbelievable. So getting philanthropy to be serious about what they say they want to do with TCTAC to drive this big ship, to make it turn the corner and to be more equitable. Words don't count. Money counts at this particular point in time.
So I'm gonna interject there. So y'all heard that? Foundations in the room, partners, foundations online. Words don't matter. Say it again, Dr. Wright.
Only money matters at this point. Words don't matter. You can tell me all kinds of stuff, but if you don't put the money where your mouth is, you're not serious.
So we
Because
need
we know you can find money for other things. Find money for this. This is a first in a lifetime chance for us to make a difference.
So with these, so it's Dr. Wright's model. As she brings in these core, she has these core hub partners, and she brings in other groups as hub partners. They have a different level of funding. But as she said, you multiply by 25. That's not in your current TCTAC budget.
It is. There's no money in my TCTAC budget for hub members. And I'll tell you offline what happened with that. I'm not going to broadcast that, but
Yes,
there's a backstory to this, the COVID.
yeah, I hear you. So that's part of the. So the TCTACs are a start. TCTACs are a seed, right? And we need to have other partners like philanthropy kicking in dollars to provide support to as we expand in hubs, support the hubs, and stabilize the hubs to get some of the durability and sustainability. Let me go to, you want to come to you real quick? I'm gonna go back to Dr. Cito. Do you have other thoughts, Dr. Cito, about what you're hearing and then how this is helping you? Like again, this peer-to-peer real-time sharing. Because you had that plan on paper, but now you're hearing this real-world stuff. Go ahead, sir.
Let's talk about money. So we were at that White House thing yesterday. And let me share with the audience, we weren't talking about the TCTACs. We were talking about, the real money, which is, dollar signs with B's, billions after it.
I wasn't invited to that meeting. I wonder why.
I can summarize it for you and the rest of the audience. Basically, there is a huge opportunity cost here. And, the TCTACs really are the seed. It's not about us. It's about the bipartisan infrastructure. It's about Inflation Reduction Act, the billion-dollar programs that community groups and tribes are eligible for. And so the worst thing that can happen is one of these deadlines for like $1 billion grant program passes by.
Expires.
And one of our community partners did not apply for it. Right. And these deadlines are on a rolling, they pass, they close, and whoever had capacity at the time, they may not be one of these, environmental justice groups that have been working 20, 30 years that, we couldn't help them fast enough to get that proposal out the door to meet the deadline. That would be a huge opportunity cost that we can't recover. So I am terrified of that. Like every day when I see, here's an RFA, it's got $1 billion budget on it, but you've got 2 months to submit the proposal.
And then it also has an expiration. The grant itself has an expiration on it, which is not fair. So that they're funded for like 2 or 3 years or something, and which isn't really enough time. They have to get rid of the money. I'm sorry, that they have to get the money.
We've got to move so fast to help our partners.
So let me say a couple of things. So one of the things that I shared in the discussion, I'm not sure I shared it well because I was talking really fast. Y'all know I have a habit of talking real fast. I got too many ideas in my head yesterday. But I'm gonna say this slowly here, and we need people to advocate for this. For all this federal funding, we need to have one common application. One common application, okay? Just like the Just Fund. The Just Fund, we need to have a common application that makes it easy and accessible. So you don't have to submit what someone said, you got this 150-page grant proposal with all these attachments. Simplify the application process and simplify it across all the funding programs. But just to say this to Dr. Cito's point, I'm gonna come back to Dr. Wright. We have about 5 minutes because I want to close this out. But you are exactly right. That's my nightmare scenario, that we miss deadlines because Dr. Hollis, we're in ramp up mode, right? We're in ramp up mode, but we still have a duty to support these communities. We still have a duty to figure it out. And as Justin Pearson, again, I'm going to say what he said on Tuesday, keynote speech, Tennessee 3, we got to be all in. We may not be able to wait till we get ready to go by November, December, January. Yeah. We may have to be all in over the next month because it's an opportunity that our HUD partners and partners of the community supposed to be serving, they need to get support to submit those applications. I just want to say that this is the co-sign on what Dr. Cito said. So we have 4 minutes left. I want to get I know we started late, and I appreciate y'all staying on board longer, Dr. Cito and Dr. Wright and Dr. Hollis. So what's your 1 minute, what should we be doing? What should we be thinking about next? What should we be doing next with these TCTACs? Just 1 minute, because we want to close out. Go ahead, Dr. Wright.
Oh, God. This is my nightmare, what I should be doing next. It is a nightmare, right now, for me, the most important thing to do is to get philanthropy to help us fund these communities to become involved in what we're doing. There's so much money out there. I've never seen it before, but even for Sokobi, the grant awards that are out there, if we're doing this work with communities, who's going to write the grant? And that's what I mean. I feel just overwhelmed. And I tell this to philanthropy all the time. This is the one time that you really need to be shoving out the money for support. I will say that there's some foundations, and they're the same ones, who show up. And then there are others who never show up. The never show uppers need to get on board. But and more than that, the one thing that I would like to do for our communities is get the word out.
Yes, ma'am.
Most of our communities don't even know what Justice 40 is, a bipartisan infrastructure law, the Inflation Reduction Act, understanding all of this complex stuff. And that's what we did in the first 6 months of our grant, training people on it, to get the word out. And at our last conference, we had communities there that said, I didn't know this. I didn't know Biden had this money. Did Biden do this? The Democrats ought to hear this too. This is your chance to get out to the world the kind of work you're doing for poor communities, for people of color around the country the first time ever. So how do we get the word out to communities that need this money? In Alaska, for example, where you'd have to take a plane to get from one place to the other, not driving. In rural Alabama, Louisiana, all of these places, these are the people we really need to contact who have sewage problems. They don't have running water. They're flooding every time in Pritchard, Alabama, for example. I mean, there are so many communities suffering, and they don't know about this money. They need to be working with their state and local and federal government to get it.
Thank you for that. Dr. Cito?
Yeah, reach out to your TCTAC center. We don't have it all figured out yet. We're all ramping up, but we have to move so quickly to deal with these opportunities that are passing by. And if you don't have capacity to write that grant, as a TCTAC center, I'll look for someone within our network that you might want to partner with, just so that a proposal can get submitted. And so you might need to cede a little bit of power to, your city agency or the state or a regional agency. But whoever can write that grant and get it submitted on time, we'll figure out what's the participatory governance structure that could go along with it, so that community can benefit. It doesn't matter so much as who the prime is. It matters that that money is secured, and then we could figure out how community can best benefit from it once it's in hand, because it's just moving too quickly.
It's moving very quickly.
Yeah, I said yesterday at the White House meeting what you just said, Dr. Wright. I said I was overwhelmed. And I said there's a few of us, we're some of the best prepared folks to do this work, and we're feeling overwhelmed. How's the community feeling? Go ahead, Dr. Hollis, to close us out.
I just want to say, I mentioned this earlier about the grant that Dr. Wilson, I told him about this morning. That was in the middle of writing a grant for $50 million and waiting to hear about the TCTAC.
Yeah, we had.
Maybe we had already gotten that.
I think it was 3. It was like we were listening. We were waiting to hear about one. We were working on a $50 million one, and then we saw this other one, and we started working on this other $50 million one.
Then we worked on one. It was crazy, and that's something we can't. That's not sustainable. And so
It's not
I agree,
sustainable.
Yeah, with
It
the
isn't.
philanthropy. I was sitting here thinking about the people who had already asked the question. It's time to reach out to them, and that's the move we need to make, which is going to be hard because we're in the middle of ramping up. So
Yeah.
it's just rethinking how to do things smarter.
Yeah. So I want to thank the panel. I know we started real late. Let's give the panel a round of applause, please, everybody. Hopefully, you learned about what these TikToks are doing and that we're trying to do our best, but we need everybody here. Thank you, Dr. Wright, for figuring out the Zoom. Thank you, Dr. Cedar, for figuring out the Zoom and getting on board. I know we had a few issues. Thank you, IT team, for helping out. Thank you, Dr. Hollis, for joining. Really excited about the work we're doing. And I'm looking forward, Dr. Wright, and Dr. Hollis just mentioned we should have a convening. I think we should have our, maybe we need to have our own TCTAC. All the TCTACs come together, convene it. And I may be down, if you want me to come down to New Orleans for the HBCU, and maybe we can come down and start doing some, because I think part of the goals, everybody, for the TCTACs is to have cross-pollination. And here, this session was some cross-pollination so we can share best practices and we can work together across regions. So we need to, Dr. Hollis, be doing this often and early. And I would recommend all the TCTACs, we need to be figuring this out together as we move forward. So thank you. Thanks for your time, and y'all enjoy the rest of your evenings.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Nice meeting you, Ed.
Likewise. Take care.
So thank you, everybody, for your patience. I know we're a little bit behind schedule. 6:33. Yeah, we're behind schedule.
Get your shuttle.
So if you didn't go out to catch the shuttle, you have to catch the next shuttle. So we want to officially close this session to day 3. I hope everybody enjoyed day 3. We do have, let's clap for day 3. You had a chance. You had day 1, day 2. This is more, we transition, and I'm not sure if I said this early in the morning, we transition from more national, international in day 1, day 2, where days 3, 4, and 5 are more about the Mid-Atlantic region, right? So today was more about government, what government's doing in the region. Days 4 and 5 will be more about training and technical assistance, bringing in some of the training technical assistance on a small scale for Match and also the TCTAC. So it's important for everybody who's interested in getting new partners, getting some capacity building and some support, at least the beginning of the capacity building technical assistance, to come back virtually on Friday and also come back in person on Saturday. Now, as we transition we have a documentary that we want to show. I know y'all probably need a little bit of break time. So we do have dinner that's ready. If you want to go get your food and come back and sit down, for those of you who are going to stay to watch the documentary is called The Smell of Money. It's about industrial hog farming in Eastern North Carolina. As I said earlier in the day, I was raised up in the EJ movement in North Carolina. My dissertation is on industrial hog farms. I was raised up by Dr. Steve Wing, the people's professor, who trained me on doing this work. And we worked with Naima Muhammad, Gary Grant, and Concerned Citizen Tillery. But in this documentary, it highlights one of the true advocates and activists in North Carolina, Miss Elsie Herring, who passed away a few years ago. But it tells her story of dealing with the devastation of industrial hog farming, where we talked about the land back movement. The land of her people was stolen by industrial hog farmers. The land that was given to her family was stolen, and then her farm was surrounded by industrial hog farms. So think about that. You have the descendants of enslaved Africans that get this land, they pass it down to their heirs, they're doing farming, they have this idyllic life, then all of a sudden your land gets stolen from you. And they put a hog farm by you. You talk about being poisoned in toxic trauma, in environmental slavery. That's an example of it. So if you want to stay and hear this story and hear her fight, there's other people will be talked about in this documentary, but it's really about her story. And Elsie was one of the people I got to know as a grad student at UNC Chapel Hill when I worked on industrial hog farming. She was somebody that I saw, in person and went to her house and really got to know her and help her with the work we're doing in North Carolina. So if you're able to stay, it's a long documentary, but I think you'll get a lot out of it. So thank you for those who are staying. Please go get food. For those of you who are going to leave, please come back virtually tomorrow. And thank you for those online. If you can stay online and if you want to watch the documentary, I think it's a powerful documentary. And I'm really hoping that you get a lot out of it. So thank you again. So get some food, and we're going to probably start maybe in IT. Is it ready to go, the documentary? It's ready to go. So we can start maybe in 15 minutes. If everybody can go through the lines and get food and come back, let's try to get this documentary. So thank you. Trying to keep this time. That's a long day.
As long as it's about to be, huh?
You all right?
I'm just texting with my stuff.
It's a lot of good ideas.
It is. I was texting him about this.
North Carolina? What city? It's central North Carolina. Yeah. Yeah, that's NC State country. No, I don't know any movies, but yeah. But I was on Eastern Drive 164, Highway 64 a lot, and Highway 54 a lot. That goes to that area. Yeah, don't start yet. Yeah, I'll start it once.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll
It's
start.
right here.
Yeah, thank you. So y'all get food, everybody. Remember the food is free. Yes. It's free. Let me come on down.
Yes, I did. Was it? Because I was like, this is not my area. But as I was researching, I was like, there's a big connection, But I was like, but before I was like, why would they have me do this one? If Jackie had been there, Jackie Jackson, she's the expert on that. She was, just coming back from out of the country and having this, that, and she travels. I think that when I got some good information from people, the other one, I was like, this is something I might need to look into. Looking like she didn't know what she was talking about. I felt like, they don't know that I really. Let me check that out. But I felt like it was a good session though, because people don't make connections like that.
That's what my notes.
Yeah.
And all of those.
I did, I've done a presentation about, then I got children's mental health with this in the way.